What am I onto?
A dangerous path.
I am determined to follow a lead that may result in the proof of the existence of extraterrestrial biological entities.
We are talking about episode number 17, E.B.E. It was written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong and directed by William Graham, who you might remember directed episode number 9, Space. It premiered on February 18th, 1994. This is a mythology episode. Okay, for what it's worth, the Iraqi Air Force was almost completely destroyed during the first Gulf War, and the U.S. maintained a no-fly zone in northern Iraq. So, hard for this to happen in the first place, doubly so because the Iraqi Air Force couldn't shoot anything down, much less a UFO. This is really a 1 in a million shot.
This is Southern Crescent to Red Crescent. We've got a down plane at Camp Perimeter.
Southern Crescent, this is Red Crescent. That's a negative. We have nothing in the sky at this time.
I've seen 3 of them flying over Chester County.
Right. 6 troopers were chasing them down 22.
Classic UFO encounter here, reminiscent of The Pilot. Lore suggests that there's some kind of secondary electromagnetic pulse that's capable of knocking out electrical systems nearby, like modern automobiles, for instance. Our guy here clearly suspects some kind of trouble. What's he been getting into? The question here is what we saw real or our imagination?
Atmospheric conditions in this area, which were possibly conducive to lightning.
Possibly.
It is feasible that the truck was struck by lightning, creating the electrical failure.
It's feasible. How can a dozen witnesses, including a squad of police vehicles in 3 counties, become hysterical over swamp gas? Not like this. I started these stopwatches at the same time.
It was round. Like a saucer.
Last night you said it was cigar-shaped and black.
So the driver, Ranheim, gives this conflicting report. And it makes me think that this was done deliberately, so we as the viewer kind of doubt what we saw.
I didn't ask for this to happen.
This man has had an alleged close encounter. The truck undoubtedly contains important trace evidence.
We will no longer cooperate in your investigation.
It's obvious someone got to the police chief. Ranheim was hiding something.
Excuse me, could I issue a pen?
We're gonna talk to some people when we get back to Washington. No, these guys are like an extreme government watchdog group. They publish a magazine called the Lone Gunmen. Some of their ideas are downright spooky.
I had breakfast with the guy who shot John F. Kennedy.
Is that so?
Old dude now, but yeah. Says he was dressed as a cop on the grassy knoll.
I can't say enough about the Lone Gunmen. I love them. I think the casting is perfect. I think they're vital to this show, especially their early season appearances. Tom Braidwood is Melvin Frohickey. The legend is when William Graham is trying to cast these guys, he wants somebody skeevy, smarmy, and he sees Tom and he says, like Tom, as a joke. And someone else said, well, why not Tom? Tom's been an actor before. And the rest is history. Dean Haglund plays Richard Langley, who is kind of like the perfect 90s pop culture projection of what everyone imagined a computer hacker was like. His kung fu is the best. And then you have Bruce Harwood, who is the odd man out, right? He's the clean-cut, suit-wearing professional who gives this whole thing an air of respectability.
Is this your skeptical partner?
She's hot.
We're talking about a dark network, a government within a government, controlling our every move.
How can they do that?
Okay. All right. What do you know about the Gulf War syndrome?
Agent Orange of the 90s.
Artillery shells coated with depleted uranium.
Yeah. UFOs caused the Gulf War syndrome. That's a good one.
That's why we like you, Mulder. Your ideas are weirder than ours.
I believe everything these guys are saying. Gulf War syndrome, depleted uranium artillery shells, the CIA meddling in elections. I'm sold.
I don't know how you could think that what they say is even remotely plausible.
I think it's remotely plausible that someone might think you're hot.
It's a form of self-delusion. It makes them think that what they're doing is important enough that somebody would...
What's the matter?
I remember this scene distinctly from watching its original airing 30 years ago. It was so unnerving and inciting paranoia, making you ask more questions. Who's listening? What's going on here?
Just a tourist.
In our line, nothing is just what it seems.
Furthermore, Ranheim lied to us about being in the Gulf War. His real name is Frank Druce. He was Special Operations Black Beret in Mosul, northern Iraq.
I trust him.
Mulder, you're the only one I trust.
You risk exposure coming here.
What I have here is too important.
You've helped my work so much, and you've never asked for anything in return, and I know you've put yourself at great risk to do so. This is the best photographic evidence I have ever seen. Scully, come
Mulder,
on.
this photograph is a fake.
What?
Mulder, we should have it analyzed.
Why don't you just admit it, Scully? You're determined not to believe him.
Well, maybe you're too determined to believe him.
I had the photo analyzed by the Bureau's computers. Initially, it appears to be legitimate. You were right, Scully. It's a fake. He tried to deceive us. There's no one we can trust.
This episode builds tension and fear and misdirects us as well as any episode of TV I've seen in a long time.
That photo was prepared by our very best.
I thought you were my ally.
Oh, I am. I've been a participant in some of the most insidious lies, and I spent years watching you to know that you were the one I could trust.
Like the reaction to the Kennedy assassination, or MIAs, or radiation experiments on terminal patients, Roswell, the Tuskegee experiments. Where will it end?
I'm not responsible for the electronic surveillance, but I do know they can still hear you.
What a disconcerting thing to say. True or not? Great shot here and superlative ambient music to go along with it. Alright, this is a great reference to the film The Conversation with Gene Hackman. If you've ever seen it, you'll understand how well this instills a frantic paranoia in Mulder. Mulder's methodical destruction of his apartment seems very much in character, too.
Scully, hey, glad you dropped by.
We're skipping a long scene where Mulder and Scully lose their surveillance. They're pretty crafty, but this puts way too human a face on their shadowy adversaries. We just see a bunch of guys in suits and cars, and I think it loses a little bit of the mystery that the earlier parts of the episode had established.
Nobody would have suspected it was only a craft from another world.
Is it? Or are you being bamboozled, Fox?
Here we go.
You might remember this very similar blue hour shot from the opening of episode 5, The Jersey Devil. Again, UFO encounter, bright light, electromagnetic pulse. Can we believe what we see?
Scully!
Oh my God.
It was an extraterrestrial biological entity. Alive.
Where did it go? What just happened? Does it fit the profile?
Did we just have a close encounter? No, it was another hoax.
So they created this elaborate show just to deflect us again. I mean, wouldn't it have been easier for them
Just to kill us. Did you send out a field investigator? And you can substantiate the sighting?
That's an intergalactic space greeting. It means hello, space brothers. A UFO party.
You've seen UFOs?
Last 2 nights.
This is it. There's Ranheim.
So I guess they just teleported this guy and presumably an E.B.E. away like that.
This place has got to have the highest level of security.
It's just the kind of challenge they're looking for.
Who?
Lone Gunmen.
It's Mulder. Turn the tape recorder off. How would you like to have on your front page the first substantiated photo of an extraterrestrial biological entity?
Now, for what it's worth, outside of this episode of The X-Files, I don't think I've ever heard the phrase extraterrestrial biological entity used before or since.
What do we have to do?
Just hack me some identification numbers. Braidwood and Steffoff.
Display these at all times. Proceed.
We said he couldn't gain access to level 6, so that's why we...
Pay special attention to Mulder's tie here. It has got to be the most hideous thing, gloriously hideous thing I've ever seen before.
We're agents with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm reaching for my ID. We're here conducting an investigation.
Male who've identified themselves.
Hold it!
Let him go. I know how badly, how very badly you want to look through that window, but it would be pointless. I have the distinction of being one of 3 men to have exterminated such a creature. And maybe sometime, through you, the truth will be known.
Jerry Hardin did a great job pulling off this expositional monologue that, if we can believe him, we know exactly why Deep Throat has been helping Mulder.
I'm wondering which lie to believe.
Although it's probably a close race, I think E.B.E. is my favorite episode of the first season. It does several things well. First, we have the introduction of the Lone Gunmen. Second, we have direction and script that really creates this heightened sense of paranoia and misdirection. We question everything that happens. Third, we never actually see a biological entity. It's entirely left to our imaginations. That's it. That's E.B.E. Next up is trivia, and then number 18, whose name I forget. What is number 18? Miracle Man? Shit. And then number 18, Miracle Man.
God has given me a special gift.
Did he buy you all that jewelry, too?